Hi! Now, finally after half a year, here's the third NBE episode. Today I'm going to tell you something about growing grass, and because it was often requested, I'm also telling you something about that shiny text effect I made in my reel. I hope you don't mind that I made some simplifications on the node setup, but I only deleted stuff which were for fine-tuning. The basic effect can be still achieved with that node setup. So let's have a look at growing grass. I have prepared these two examples with different growing behaviors. Let's first have a look at that evenly growing grass. Of course you need a hair particle system for your grass. I won't go into depth in the settings here, but what is important is that you have child particles, because you can only influence the length of child particles. And you can influence that length by having a texture which is mapped to the particle attribute length. That particle attribute button only shows up if you already have a particle system. Then you choose length and you choose multiply for the texture blending mode. I have chosen a linear blend texture, and all what's left to do is to animate that texture. Unfortunately, you can't bind it to an object and animate that object, but what you can do is to animate the offset in the map input panel. So you insert keyframes for the X offset from -1 to 1. Just insert keyframes as usually with I, insert key offset. And you're almost done. You probably want to change the X coordinates to the Z coordinates, otherwise the blend texture will move on the X axis and the grass will spread on the X axis, but you want it to grow evenly, so you choose to map the X coordinates to the Z coordinates. Now the texture will move from down here to up here and your grass is growing evenly. Now, if you want to have grass which spreads from the middle instead of growing evenly, you can do that pretty similar. You also have that texture which is mapped to the length, but it's not a linear blend texture, it's a sphere blend texture with some changes in the color band menu. And now you don't animate the offset, you animate the size. But first you place that small sphere down under your plane so that it doesn't affect the plane in the beginning. You can do that by choosing a small negative value for the offset into Z direction. And your sphere has to be very small in the beginning. So you insert a key for the size, and the size has to be really big. A big size means a small texture. This is because the size actually defines how often the texture is mapped onto your object. So when you choose, for example, a size of 20, it means that the texture size actually gets divided by 20. Okay. So now you insert two keyframes, one with a very big size and then one which is almost 0. So that it gets so big that the small little white circle covers your whole plane. And there's the last thing you should care about. Because of that definition of the size value, you won't have a linear spreading behavior, but you probably want to have that. So you need to change your hypercurve of the material of your size from a curve which looks something like that to something like that. Alternatively, you could insert just more than 2 keyframes to get a spreading behavior you want to have. Now let's move on to that shiny text effect. At first I should mention that I have two different layers. One which includes only my text object, and another one which includes everything I need for my shine effect. I also have two different render layers. One which includes my shine layer, and one which only includes my text layer. Okay, now the question is, how did I do the shine effect? I have here a spot lamp, and that spot lamp has halo activated for the shine effect, and it has buff shadow activated so that the halos can really clip on other things. It's important to choose buff shadows. And I have a huge halo step value and a huge shadow buffer size, so that everything looks very smooth. Here I have a cutout of my text, and yes, I really made it on my own. I don't know how to do that fast. I tried Boolean operations, but they seem to be buggy on text objects. And on that cutout the light can shine through. I also have these two planes on the left and on the right, and they are a further limitation of the area where the light can shine through. And both the cutout and the planes need to be slightly extruded so that the halo really can clip on it. And yeah, the cutout and the planes have a shapeless black material so that they are not visible. Okay. Now that spot lamp has a track 2 constraint to that plane, and that plane has a midpoint and a rift here. So the spot lamp follows that rift, and the plane is animated to move from the left to the right. Yeah, and that's everything I need to do for the shine effect. Now what's left to do is to combine the text and the shine effect. And you do that, of course, with composite nodes. Let's first make a render. Good. Here's the render layer with my text object. But first I need to mask out everything on the right side. And to do that I need to know where the right plane is. I've given the right plane a path index of 1. So now I can filter it out with an ID mask with the ID 1. Now that I have that mask, I use it to mix my text render layer with black. Everything where that mask is white, my text render layer get mixed with black. Now I take that shine effect over here. I blurred it only slightly and added some colors with a color ramp. Then I just screened that shine effect over the rest of the image. I also took the text and blurred it a little. Also added some colors and also screened it over the final image so that the text itself also glows a little. Well, and that's it. Seems we're done. I hope you learned something. I hope it wasn't too complicated. And goodbye.